What makes a Gwent card a good or bad design? Now this is all personal opinion. I just play the game. So you can take everything with a grain of salt. If I'm wrong about something, feel free to let me know down below. When it comes to card games, I usually have a singular, overarching idea of what a good card is. A good card should be promoting both thoughtful and interesting game states and thoughtful and interesting deck building. This means that this card usually can be flexed into one deck or another, and when it's played or has the potential to be played, alters how the game is going. So let me go ahead and give you the number one example. It's the Defender cards. These are, I would argue, the best design cycle in the entire game, ignoring these two. Why don't we go ahead and just do it? Boom, got it. So why is this so good? Notice there's no neutral defender, so every faction has to lean into what they have and work around that. Let's start with like Fion, for example. Fion comes down, you can keep him as a 1-2 defender, or more often than not you'll play him as a 7-9, but he creates a tactic that can be both really good and really bad. It can help you arm hefty helges and fire scorpions, or it can hurt you if you have Stefan. You want to play Stefan to use to copy one of your earlier tactics you played in the round. If you play Fion, you're gonna get a new tactic loaded. Again, Stefan will copy the last tactic you played. If you play Fion, you reset that tactic. The new tactic will be battle preparation, because when Fion comes down, battle preparation comes out. Cool. Another great example, Syndicate spawns lots of stuff and also has cards that care about Salamandra. Number of units out there. Salamander, stolen mutagens. This card lets you play into spawning themes, which helps you make more interesting decks with things like Fallen Knights. Maybe you can use to protect Fallen Knights and buff them. Or maybe you're leaning into the more Salamandra side, this poison aspect that really wants a bunch of Salamandra units out so that Salamander can get extra profit off of it. Stolen mutagens get extra profit. Assault can work better. That's really interesting. Another good example, Figus here. Figus allows you to either lean into more dwarf heavy play because it gets you a bunch of dwarves out. Normally dwarves don't care about getting hit by stuff, but now because you have a defender dwarf, you can actually print dwarves with very powerful effects, like a good old Brewer. Because Brewer might be really tanky. You don't want him locked though. Having a dwarf with defender, really useful for that. Each of the defender cards, I can go for all of them, but like each of them leans into their different factions theme, and that feels great. They also help you promote interesting archetypes. You'll see Troy in a deck that's shield heavy. You'll also see him in a deck that is going to be engine heavy. You're trying to hide something like Voltus. On top of all of that, they also have a huge benefit of, in terms of game design, not actual points, but they don't really give you a lot of points. They're actually really low points, which is really good. By being 7s for 9s, honestly, there are bronzes that are 7 for 4s. You're basically paying 5 more provision for a tanky dude to protect your stuff. That means you have however you design your deck has to justify that payoff. You're putting a lot of provisions into getting this special status. On top of all of that, for your opponents, it's going to make really interesting game states. You're going to try to get this guy down. Your opponent's going to know, wow, they sunk a lot of provisions into a low point unit. I better get through that. And then it's on your opponent. They have the pressure now to try to get through. If they can't, great. You win your bet. Your provisions pay for themselves. But what if they tech a really low point Purify? That's a choice they made in deck building because they're thinking about cards like this. And then they get rewarded for it. Promoting interesting deck building, even if you're not running this because your opponent might run it. You need an answer to defender. Or maybe it's punishing. Maybe I'm saving Heatwave and I realize, oh look, my Heatwave is probably not going to be very good anymore because all the cards I want to Heatwave are going to be behind this. I'll kill it with a Heatwave, but in a sense I traded down a provision, 10 for a 9, and I probably don't have my premium removal spell ready to go against whatever thing you're actually trying to protect. This is very healthy for the game. How much tech do you want at low provision to get through these cards like Purify? Are you willing to spend a lot of provision and just kind of have a catch-all spell like Heatwave? All of this is promoted from these series of 6 cards that all do different things that are faction specific, each one doing defender in its own way, and I love it. Arguably the best designed set of cards in the game. Let me show you another really well designed card that none of you like. Good old Kelly here. Why don't we just bring up Kelly? Yeah, Kelly. There you go. Maybe give him a little roar. I don't remember if you roar. You roar. Good dragon. Okay, here's it. Why is Kelly a good design? Well, it's a 9 for 13 with a devastating effect. If Kelly hits the field, you better have an answer you're going to lose. But that's probably okay since you're investing 13 provision into her. That's going to really cramp down on your deck. If your opponent has a good answer to her, then you're going to take a beating. But if you don't, if she lives, if Kelly is able to hold out this entire round, you win. Cool. Now, you're typically pairing her with Carapace, so she usually has Veil. But notice, row locked. So, you can't run her out first, because she'll kill herself, unless your opponent plays first, you play second. Number 2, you probably want to protect her. Maybe you have Cave Troll, so you're trying to think about how do I protect her? I'm going to use Carapace for the Veil. But what if they have a move unit? Then all of a sudden, because the melee could pop back a row. And also, it's really weak in certain decks. If you run into a control deck that's also like Kelly, not running many units. Scoia'tael unitless is probably the most popular example right now. Kelly doesn't feel very good. Another deck that really, really destroys Kelly is good old classic Lippy, because they get to play Curse of Corruption and Heatwave twice. So Kelly has a bunch of decks that can prey on her, but also she's a powerful card in certain metas. Creates weird game states where you have to answer this card with the cards in your hand. Also beneficial to have tutors in the game because, hey, maybe I get rewarded by putting in my was it Polly who moves the card? It doesn't matter. Any of the move cards, I get rewarded for it if I'm able to get through to defenders and protection. Just pop Kelly back to the back row. Cool. That is a good design. It promotes a powerful game state. You know it's coming when it's Carapace, and that's like a lot of fun. In addition to that, it doesn't overwhelm. I'm going to zoom back in. It doesn't overwhelm the choices a deck has. So, for example, Kelly's monsters. So I can run Nithril. That's probably the most common. Good old Nithril here as one of my like sub boss monsters because there's multiple rounds in Gwent. I can run Dash, Theory Dash. But also, as time goes on, you'll see other options appear. Hey, maybe I'll run Shoop instead, right? Maybe I'll put in a Shoop. I can have more flexibility with my Carapace charges, and Shoop's very strong. In addition to that, maybe I'll try a different... What's another great example? Unseen Elder, right? Hey, what if I try Devotion and use Unseen Elder, who also just got recently buffed? Really like it where, Unseen Elder loves Carapace. Hey, maybe that's another boss monster I can put in. Have this kind of ongoing theme. Cool, right? Now, we've talked about some of the good examples. Let me give you a bad example. Bad example of a boss monster is Vi. Why is Vi terrible? Not even a boss monster, but just a card. I hate this card. This card should never have been printed. It is an inherently terrible card. Let me go ahead and start. Number 1, does it promote interesting deck building? No, it's a terrible... You'll never have flexibility. Why? If you decide to run Vi, every tutor you put in makes the next tutor more incentivized to be put in. So if I put in one, let's say I'm going to say, look, I'm going to eat Vi twice. I'm going to eat Vi twice. Well, all of a sudden, if I want to add in another... How do I describe it? The first time is eaten is basically worth 4 provisions, right? It's 7 for 4. Second time, now it's a 10. Maybe we say it's 8 provisions, like Golat. But every single time it gets eaten, I want to pull it out even more. It's more points now. Bigger. Therefore, what quickly happens if I choose to run Vi is the entire deck becomes Vi. Because every time I pull it out, it gets so much better. I don't have a choice. If I want to eat it twice, the third consumption's even better. I got to get another tutor. So every deck you want to put this in, there's no creativity. There's no interesting boss monsters, how many use my other Carapace charges. You just play Vi in as many tutors as possible. It also makes card design less interesting because I can't print tutors anymore. I literally build Vi, search for a deck, and you're just going to try to find anything that would let you potentially pull it out. Ooh, Royal Decree or Neuromancy. They even use Quacks for Pete's sake. And you just go down this list trying to find to the point where even Prince Willem is used. They just random gold from the deck. Yes, please. Anything to get Vi out. This means that neutral search, any cards, any ones that will let you find Vi in the future are going to be absolutely broken. You can't print more interesting search cards because then Vi picks it up. If Vi could use marching orders, they would. All right. So that's my complaint about Vi. And then in addition to that, let's go back to him. I guess I'm not done. I'm not done yelling about the worm. Vi also has a huge problem with game states. Because if I know what the problem card is, I want to be able to play around it or kill it. Example would be Yurden. Weirdly enough, Yurden, I'm not saying it's great gameplay. I'm not going to say it's bad though. If I think you're running Yurden, I at least have 2 rows to spread out boosted units on. I can make a thoughtful decision about trying to avoid it. If I think you're Vi, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. It basically says, hey, do you run unit reset and all removal? Yes? Cool, you win. No? Cool, you don't. There's nothing I do. There's no interesting ways I can disrupt you or try to foil your plans, because most cards in the game don't let me hit your deck. If I'm playing Mill, which they're never going to make a tier 1 archetype, they will never do that, CDPR, I have a shot. Right, Mill would be a healthy deck to have in a metagame where Vi is present. But in the sense Mill will never be part of the game, why should Vi be part of the game? This card makes deck building boring, and this game state just doesn't matter. Because if you have tall removal, you win. If you don't, you lose. There's no interesting ways to interact. When I once proposed early on this channel a rework of this card, I said it should have Death Wish, shuffle a Vi back into the deck, period. And then at the beginning of each turn, increase its base power by some amount. And then you can balance, of course, points and provision. And that's also a macro thing I want to mention as we near the end of this video. Every card in this game can be balanced. There's 2 levers here, and these levers are brutal. I can make any card good or bad by adjusting the amount of points it gives and the amount of provisions it costs. That's it, right? I can make a card that says you lose the game viable by putting it at 0 provisions, letting people just mulligan it on site, and it would be played in every single deck as a result. That's pretty crazy, right? I can play a card literally that says you lose the game, but by putting it 0 provisions and knowledge that you'll just discard every time, you'll probably run it anyways. Wild. Ultimately, when it comes down to the cards, I hope we avoid a lot more like these in the future and get stuff like Kelly, Defenders, and other cards that just promote interesting and thoughtful deck building and game states on both sides. And that's all I can hope for. If I cannot interact with the card and not text something in that significantly helps me with it, then it's a waste of my time. It's bad card design. So less Vi's, more of the rest. Take care, everybody. Shout out to super patrons Ahmed Ali and Pamzosaurus. Thank you both so much for all the support.